In business today, 3 things to know. First, housing is on cloud 9.
So long, boys!
Home sales soar. What's behind the numbers, and does this mean the recent housing slump is over? Then, total recall. The auto industry is in full reverse mode, recalling a record number of cars, including a new batch today from Nissan and Honda. And feeling deflated? Surprising news about how your performance at work suffers when your team disappoints. Arise Exchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Hope you all had a nice first weekend of summer. Americans went shopping in May, and they bought a lot more homes than expected. Existing home sales rose for the second straight month and did so at their strongest pace since the fall. Sales of single-family homes rose 4.9% to nearly 4.9 million units. Both prices and inventories improved, signaling that the housing slump might be coming to an end. With that said, the numbers are still below this time last year's numbers. And U.S. manufacturing is also on the upswing. It expanded this month at the fastest pace in 4 years. The Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index rose to 57.5 in June. That topped expectations. None of this really helped the markets today. For the most part, the Dow and the S&P 500 both down. It's the first drop for the Dow in 7 sessions. We like the show open so much we showed it to you again. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closing down 982 to 16,937. The S&P 500 down a quarter to 1962. The Nasdaq did turn things around moderately, up 64 cents to 43.68 by the end of the day. Taking a look at commodities, gold closing up $1.40 to 13.18, and oil pulling back 77 cents. To talk more about the housing numbers and other economic data is Chris Lowe. He's chief economist at FTN Financial. Chris, welcome back to Arise Exchange as always. You look at these housing numbers and what sort of drove the sales?
It's all about mortgage rates. You know, when we saw housing give up the ghost last year, the trigger was when the Fed warned they would stop buying assets, and interest rates started to rise in May. We had the peak in rates in December. They've been coming down since then, and we're finally getting some relief.
So it's really that sensitive that you just get a few tenths of a point on the mortgage numbers and you get this big swing?
Well, yeah, and it's more than a few tenths. We were up at 4.7% at one point, where the mortgage rate is now down to about 4.10. And that's what the difference is. It then takes a couple of months because you get a rate lock from your bank. Sure. And you start shopping, and it takes a couple of months to find a house.
What does that say then about the quality of the housing recovery? If you look at it from a historic point of view, if it's that sensitive to mortgage rates, what does it say about the recovery?
Well, there's a couple of things I think that are driving this recovery. One, it's an existing home recovery. The new house market still is just dead. And that's because most single-family homes are built by small builders. They can't get credit.
That's interesting.
Because regulators have just tightened it up too much. But existing homes, it's a national market, and it's going to be more rate sensitive because you've got houses not necessarily where people are desperate to buy.
Are we starting to see some benefits of the Fed easing up on the regulations regarding the banks in giving mortgages?
Well, yes and no. Because, yes, the Fed is encouraging banks to lower their standards a bit, but the Consumer Financial Protection Board, this is a brand new regulator created by Dodd-Frank, went into effect last year, and they put new mortgage regulations in place in January. And when you look at average FICO scores, they're a lot higher than they were last year.
And that
is a problem.
And that really holds back people on the lower income of buying homes. And when they put these regulations into effect, do they not see that coming? Do they not know that they're going to have to do some reversing at some point?
You know, I think the problem is they do open this up for comments, and they had a ton of comments. But there's so many people who argue from their business interests. You know, the mortgage bankers, not surprisingly, they all hated it.
Sure.
The consumer advocates, they loved it. Now that it's in place, what we're hearing is consumer advocates are saying, look, first-time buyers have to be able to buy. We need to fix it. So they will. They'll get to it. It'll just take time.
I want to ask you about inflation. Do you think the Fed and Janet Yellen has it right with the CPI and where they think inflation is going? Because it was really off their radar in the last minutes at the
It's been super low the last 3 months. Inflation has come back. We expected Yellen and the Fed to say, they're at least a little worried. They're not at all. So why is it? It's because all the stuff that they said was a one-off on the low side last year, those are the same categories that are up this year. I think they've got a lot of credibility on this one.
They've got a lot of good credibility on this one.
Absolutely.
And so when you start seeing all of these articles about starting to hedge with inflation, buy gold. You don't buy into that right now.
I'd be really cautious about that. Especially there's all this geopolitical stuff going on around the world too, which I'm sure you're going to touch on. That's part of what's driving gold also. And if you get a resolution there, if things get quiet, well, we saw it last year. Gold prices can really drop fast.
Okay, Chris Lowe, Chief Economist with FTN Financial. Thank you.
Great to be here, Andrew.
And speaking of the geopolitical situation, Secretary of State John Kerry vows, quote, intense support to counter Sunni militants in Iraq. The comments come during a trip to Iraq by Kerry and after the group ISIS took control of more northern and western towns. Sam Fulwood is from the Center for American Progress, and he was with the president today, by the way, on a separate topic that we will ask Sam about in a few minutes. Sam, welcome back to Arise Exchange.
Hi, glad to be with you.
Okay, so the Secretary of State is urging that there is a political solution that has to be part of the equation here. The question is, what would that solution look like with a militant group that's probably not interested in talking?
Well, I think that the administration has been pretty clear almost from the beginning that they want Maliki to be more open to other factions within Iraq, and that hasn't happened. And I think that was what the Secretary of State went to press that with Maliki, that he can't be such a dictator that he has been so far.
Is he done, Maliki? We've been hearing over and over again that he cannot survive this.
It's very difficult to see how he survives in the long term. In the short term, he's essential because, with the militants bearing down on them, the last thing you want to do is have a change in leadership. So just for stability's sakes in the short term, he's there. But I think almost everybody has said that they're not very much optimistic about him in the long term.
With ISIS growing in strength, though, if you start bringing in, for example, the Sunnis into the political process more, is that going to really resonate enough? I mean, is it going to stop the momentum that this group has? I mean, they are just taking one city after another.
I don't know, and I don't think anyone can answer that. I think that it is an opportunity for the Obama administration to press Maliki to be more open to what they've been trying to tell him all along. And there's some conditions about U.S. support, military support in that. But as for it will stop ISIS, who knows? We'll just have to wait and see about that.
And what level of military support do you think that we are willing to supply, and sort of what is our tolerance, both inside the White House and even in Congress?
Well, the administration has been pretty clear that they're not going to put, as they put it, boots on the ground. So that pretty much leaves some sort of maybe aerial strike with drones, and they are sending in military advisors, but that's not supposed to be a fighting force.
And Sam, there's been some controversy that we don't actually have good intel on the ground anymore. Do you think that's true, or do you think the media is overplaying that? Because when we talk about airstrikes, you need to know where to strike. And
I'm not in a position, I'm not a military expert, so I can't really assess that. There have been comments out of the administration that there's some distrust of what kind of information they would get from the Iraqi officials about trying to target drone strikes.
Okay, Sam, I want to turn to another subject today because your group co-sponsored a Workers' Family Summit with the president today. And it's kind of interesting because it appears that the president is really doing this to shore up his support among women's voters. What did he say today, and how successful was it?
Well, I don't know that the president is trying to shore up his support with women voters because he's not running for anything anymore.
The Democratic Party.
Well, and I think really what the whole point was to show how much he cares personally about passing some legislation that would be good for working families. And as he pointed out, and made a very strong case today, that how women's situations go in this country, so goes families and American society. And I think that was the overall theme and the point of this.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, it is rare when you see the president, the first lady, the vice president, and the vice president's wife all sharing the same stage in the same day, talking about the same thing.
But Sam, are they calling for sort of a European model, and is that the right appropriate time to do so if you look at the problems that Europe is having economically?
Well, I don't think anybody called for a European model. I think they did say that the United States is unlike a lot of European countries in the level of support that it gives to working families, and that there's no reason why we can't do better, not necessarily to adapt something that another country is doing, but we should be doing better just because it's the right thing to do in this country.
Okay, Sam Fulwood from the Center for American Progress in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much.
Glad to.
And coming up, what is going on with all the auto recalls? Alan Taylor will actually be here in the studio with us to talk about it. You're watching Arise Exchange.
If I was building my own news network, first thing I think I'd want high-quality reporters, very educated, intelligent people.
Hello, I'm Francesca Maxime.
I'm Julian Phillips.
I'm Wendy Gillette.
I'm Sophia Song Hai.
I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Thank you for joining us here in New York City.
I would like to see more people of color represented in high positions in media.
We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well.
People need to understand the problems that are going on in the community are much closer than we actually think they are.
Kayla Phillips is one of the shoppers who is suing Barney's, and she is here with her attorney. What is it that you want from them?
Not to judge every African-American person that comes in your store.
Welcome back to Arise Exchange. The auto industry has now broken the annual record for safety recalls in less than half a year as a massive recall for airbags announced today. Honda, Nissan, and Mazda saying that they are calling back 2.9 million vehicles worldwide due to faulty airbags. BMW, Chrysler, and Ford, using the same airbag supplier, are also conducting limited recalls. With more on what this means for the industry and drivers, we have auto expert Alan Taylor joining us right here in the studio. He is the CEO of the Radio Entertainment Network. Alan, good to see you on set here. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. What is going on with the auto industry? Because really, they're just taking more cars off the road than putting them on right now.
This is actually a good thing, I think, because if you look at what's happened with General Motors, it's because people didn't speak up. The nail that sticks up gets hammered down, and that was the culture at GM. And
there was a report today, I think, that somebody had warned about this to the board in 2002, and I want to kind of know what the board members are going to keep their jobs now.
Well, boy, that's
and we're talking about the faulty ignition switch.
Yeah, exactly. That's another story.
Because GM's out there firing people.
Yeah. Well, so what happens is that every one of the automakers has got to take a look at what's happening to GM and say, you know what, you better look and see if there's anything like this. And if there is, let's fix it now. Because now they can do it under the cloak of darkness, you might say.
Yeah, and so you think that they're getting ahead of the situation?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the deal with these faulty airbags? What's going on there?
Well, it's my guess that they've had some complaints, some problems, and probably one manufacturer is making the same manufacturer is making airbags for all these different automakers. And so they're just looking at it going, look, we've had a number of complaints, and we're going to fix it right now because look at GM.
What is the economic impact to the companies when they do these recalls? I imagine there is some modeling that a certain amount of recalls are going to happen every year, but we're probably way above that at this point. What is the economic impact for GM, for Chrysler, for all the companies that have to do this?
Well, it's huge, but I have to think that they all figure that this is part of the game. Because these are machines, they're mechanical machines. They're not perfect, they're going to break down, and so they have to put a certain fund aside for recalls. They just don't want to, that's their slush fund. So if now they're getting caught, they have to. But you look at GM right now, they've had 44 recalls since this started. It's affected over 40 million cars. But I look Mary Barra right in the eye, and I can see that she means to do business. She means to take care of these people. She says that there'll be no cap to this fund. And anybody that was affected by this.
This is the litigation regarding the faulty ignition
switch, right. There's no cap to and I think that the fact that they brought in a third party to determine who will get paid what, I think it's very honorable.
Yeah, and it appears that they're taking the smart way when other disasters, BP, for example, did not necessarily do that they're trying to get ahead of it. So are we going to start seeing a slowdown in some of these recalls?
No, I think this is going to be the year of the recall, actually, because everybody needs to take advantage of it right now. It seems like a few years ago was the year of the bankruptcy. Everybody was just jumping on.
Right, everyone went bankrupt, and now they're recalling everything.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more recalls, and it's a good time to do it, too. It's really a great time to buy a car because you know that they're going to have turned over every leaf.
Well, that's the next question, then. These are recalls of cars from previous years. Do you think that the cars they're selling now off the showroom lots are not recall-proof, because you'll never have that, but are simply going to be much better and much more reliable that this won't happen?
Well, I think they are anyway. But at the end of the day, there's so much plug-and-play technology in these cars, and the more complex they can become with self-driving cars, and you have Google.
Self-driving cars concern me in the recall mode. I mean, because the thing just does.
It'll drive itself.
You see the drones out there. Yeah. It'll just drive itself. Drive itself to the shop. That's right.
I think the cars are awesome these days, and there's nothing for anybody to worry about.
They really are, and that's something that may be lost in all of this. Aren't cars safer than they've ever really been?
Unbelievable. It's phenomenal. If you drive a current day car, the car will put on the brakes for you. It'll give you lane departure warning system. It'll give you haptic feedback.
It's a whole computer system running it.
It's amazing.
So
it's wonderful.
Overall, when you're looking at the auto numbers for the year, how do you think they're going to come in, generally speaking? You don't have to give me a number, but is it going to be an improvement?
No, I think it's going to be
year?
a strong year. I really do. I mean, you still have great financing options. I think that the economy's trying its best to do a little better. Like you said, housing market's starting to pick up a little bit, and
interest rates are still low if you're buying cars.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a good time.
Okay, Alan Taylor, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Time now for our business ticker. Stories making headlines around the nation. It looks like General Electric is the winner in the Alstom sweepstakes. French regulators cleared the final hurdle in GE's $17 billion purchase of the French infrastructure giant. The French government will have an option to buy 20% of Alstom, which it had sought. Alstom is the maker of the high-speed trains that zoom through the French countryside. Two American CEOs are vowing to fight for their jobs. Dov Charney, who was fired as CEO of American Apparel, the company he founded, is not going quietly. He says he's talking to supportive shareholders about firing the board of directors, which had fired him. Charney was ousted for a range of bad behavior, including alleged sexual harassment and the misuse of company funds. And Chip Wilson is assuming the fighting pose in his battle with the board of yoga outfitter Lululemon, a company he also founded. Wilson is reportedly talking with Goldman Sachs about how to gain control of Lululemon so he could fire that board. I'm wondering, being on a board is endangered these days. And more than a quarter of Americans have no emergency savings. According to a report by Bankrate.com, even those who manage to save aren't putting away enough. As many as 2/3 don't have the recommended 6 months of savings. And it's not just those Americans scraping by. It also includes the highest income households. If you are like many of us here at Arise, you watch Team USA come so close to beating Portugal in the World Cup last night, a victory that would have advanced USA to the next stage. But with less than 10 seconds left, Portugal tied the game, shocking American fans all the way from Brazil to the U.S. For fans, pulling themselves together after a tough outcome for their favorite team is essential because, well, most of us have to go to work the next day. Sports and celebrity psychiatrist Dr. Derek Sweet joins us now on the phone to talk about the psychological impact of being a disappointed sports fan and the productivity that it costs business. Dr. Sweet, thank you for joining us here on Arise Exchange.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Can you explain this phenomenon that we have? I woke up this morning, and I'm a nominal soccer fan, but I woke up this morning and felt kicked to the stomach. Can you explain why that is when we don't play the game? We don't have an investment money-wise in the game. Our life does not change, whether they win or lose.
Yeah, what's interesting about sport in general is that unconsciously we are tied in more than we know. Often what it is that our identities are tied into whoever we're rooting for. For example, you might wear the same jersey that it might say New York or Los Angeles or whatever the team is, and I think we just don't realize that it's a social identity issue for us. It's a value issue for us. It's an esteem issue. And so while we're sitting there having some chips and watching the sporting event, we're actually also very ingrained and in tune with how we feel and what this means for us personally. And so I think that's why we feel the way we do, whether we win or lose.
And isn't it also a little bit manic? Because as bad as we feel when we lose, when we win, which is far lesser of an occurrence, no matter what sports team you root for, you feel great.
Absolutely, because what winning does is there's a term called a reflective glory that we get when we win, and the glory that comes with winning and victory reflects right onto us. And so it affects our mood, our motivation levels, and our energy levels as well.
Okay, so how does this affect the office space? Because I could see people moping around here. They were moping around on the streets, and it's not over for Team USA by any means. How does this affect businesses when you go to work the next day, and what can you do to sort of get yourself out of the funk?
Well, the first thing is that, businesses, the human capital and the human product of the business, that you can't get around it. We're not machines. So, we're going to have folks who are going to be feeling down and who are going to be moping around and who are going to be feeling really sort of less than energetic around the work product. I think what you have to do is acknowledge it. I think what happens is that when businesses tend to stifle that and just come out with a mantra that, look, you're here to work and you're going to have to get this done, what it does is it only perpetuates or exacerbates, I suppose, the irritation, the disappointment that folks feel. And that actually leads to people zoning out at the desk, not feeling like they want to work.
And does commiserating at the office help?
Yes, it does. I think it's an important place. We spend the majority of our time, at least people like me anyway, between home and work. And so to not have, it's important that employers, actually the reverse is true, even when when a big sporting event comes up, it's important that employers and businesses actually allow people to talk about sports and to vent. It helps on both ends.
Dr. Sweet, thank you so much. I tend to pick losing sports fans teams right now, the Mets and the Islanders, so we'll probably have you back on soon.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, you got it.
Ahead, out of order, why one Michigan judge is our favorite person of the day. You're watching Arise Exchange.
One of the great things about Arise News, it is truly a multicultural global channel that is paying attention to communities of all different kinds, not just here in the United States, not just in Africa, but all around the world, as we're giving a voice to the people that don't traditionally have the kind of a voice that a mass media organization can have. You're getting here at Arise News that you're not going to find at the other networks is a unique perspective, and I think that's part of what Arise is here to do.
One of the great things about Arise Entertainment 360 is we have this Arise to Your Health segment, which really focuses on the holistic approach of being healthy. So we do everything from working out to juicing to getting in shape by doing fun exercises like bouncing on a trampoline or wearing these bouncy boots on our feet when we're jumping all over the set. We've done karate, we've danced the weight off, we've done just about everything. And of course, I love when we eat on set, but we do it in a very healthy and clean way.
Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Today, it is a Michigan judge who clearly believes her authority is more important than the rights of the men and women serving our country. Judge Margaret No has ordered a sailor to appear in court on Monday, or she will issue an arrest warrant and revoke the sailor's custody of his 6-year-old daughter. But here's the rub. The sailor, Matthew Hindies, is currently serving on the USS Michigan, a submarine, which is somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. So there is no way to get to court. The judge won't even allow him to attend via Skype and has denied his lawyer's request for a 90-day stay, which is usually required for defendants when they are serving in the military. The issue, according to the judge, is that the child should have been turned over to his mother when Sailor Hindies left for duty and not his current wife. Now, there's an arrest warrant out for the sailor, and his daughter may be taken away. All the while, he's defending the nation. And so Judge Margaret No, there she is our favorite person of the day. Next, from cancer survivor to life coach, one woman's journey in helping others. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Looking at mainstream news stations where only you have a very small minority of people of color being newscasters and actually having prominent roles in the media.
In a newsroom in the United States, maybe 10% of decision makers come from communities of diversity. That's not right.
Well, diversity is important because the more complete the news is, the more accurate a picture you're getting of the world, and the more you can form an accurate opinion of things.
The vision here is not just to tell the main stories of the day, but to tell the news that other organizations don't tell, and tell it in a way that people like me, people that look like me, that look like you, are interested in.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
People use social media for their professional advancement and sometimes to cause personal pain, as we know. But a new and growing online network specifically brings people together to talk about their obstacles and hopefully heal in the progress. Bershan is the author of 365 Ways to Challenge You to a Better Life, and she is the founder of the social media site YouAreAWarrior.com, and she has a new book out. You are a warrior, right here. Bershan, thank you. Welcome to Arise Exchange. It's such an honor to have you on here. Your story is really inspiring because you are a breast cancer survivor.
I am.
And then you took that and you went into a whole new direction with your career and how you wanted to help people. Talk through that journey for us.
Yes, I did. You know, I realized after dealing with stage 4 breast cancer and my friends came to visit me, everyone was dealing with issues. My friends were coming in with fertility issues. Some of my friends had just said they were gay or had HIV or was getting abused. And I realized, where do we go when we have issues? We don't go anywhere. We don't go to Facebook. We don't go to Instagram or Twitter. Where do we go?
Well, and what's really interesting, because you mentioned Facebook, the problem is we do go to Facebook and we see how great everyone else's life is.
Exactly.
Because we only post the great things. You know, so it's really interesting. So how did you then set up a social network to sort of attract people in there and get people to open up?
Exactly. Well, I realized that once I told my story, that people would come on because we suffer in silence. Let's be clear. We all want to make it seem like we're okay and nothing's wrong. We have a great marriage. Our kids are okay. When we're not, we're suffering. So all of these...
We're all suffering.
We're all suffering. I mean, we are. You know, I wanted to provide a network, a social network where people can express themselves and communicate and not be afraid and just say, you know what, I'm depressed or I'm lonely or I'm addicted.
Well, are the issues you're seeing when people join, is it psychological? Is it physical? What are the big challenges people have?
You know, the 3 big issues are mental illness, depression, and addiction, believe it or not, and cancer. It's in there. Cancer is in there, too. You know what? People are saying, you know, I'm addicted to cocaine, or I've been an alcoholic for 10 or 15 years, or I'm abused, or I'm miserable.
And so how does it work? Does someone join anonymously? Or and then how do people in the community help each other?
Good point. So you can use the site whatever way you want to. You can join and be private, or you can be public. So if you use it public, I'm surprised that people are showing their faces and just like, I feel good, I want to come out. But you can be private too, and just look at other people and just connect and just hear other stories, because sometimes that makes you feel that you're not alone.
In this day and age on social media where so many people are putting just about everything out there.
Yes.
You know, is this a different concept where this is really kind of serious stuff? That they're not, you know, you're not posting photos of you at late night at the bars.
Well, you know what? It is serious, but it's truthful stuff. How about that? You know what I mean?
That's interesting.
Yeah, because we hide behind these masks and want to make it seem like we're okay. But I think
we don't lie about problems.
Right, we don't lie about problems. But I think it's time that we stop the madness and really come out with the truth and really share who we are and get help. That's the whole thing, get help.
I want to ask you about your show on Oprah Winfrey's network, on the OWN network. Walk us through a little bit. What were you going to see?
So, Love in the City, well, we stopped taping, but it's about 4 women with real life struggles, real life challenges, real issues. You know, I talk about stage 4 breast cancer. Someone else talks about infertility problems. Someone else speaks about, you know, dating a 27-year-old guy. Is she a cougar? You know, we talk about real issues. It's not fighting and bottle throwing. It's all about sharing
In
stories.
the 30 seconds left, going back to the site, is it more women or more men on the site?
Got to tell you, it's both. It really is.
Is it really
both.
evenly split?
It's really an even split.
So men are feeling more comfortable about talking
Men are
about their
feeling, and
problems.
so I'm happy about that. Yes, they are. They're feeling more comfortable and they're expressing themselves.
Okay, Bershan Shaw, the author of You Are a Warrior, and it's youareawarrior.com.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We'll have you back on the show soon.
Thank you.
Taking another look at the markets today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average went down for the first time in 7 days, closing at 16,937. The S&P 500 also pulled back, and the NASDAQ ended the day just a tick higher. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Exchange. We will see you here on Tuesday.